Good hello, welcome to Onion Skin. This is my first attempt at doing a full-scale tutorial live. Hopefully it didn't cut off the beginning of my sentence. So I'm going to say everything again, just in case. Good hello, welcome to Onion Skin. Now, the last couple of days I've been doing live streaming in the mornings, and it's been pretty good. However, it's been a little bit slow because I've sort of just been practicing and experimenting on my own thing with an audience present, which has been good. But I wanted to do something a little bit more today, and that be, well, an entire tutorial, but do it all live. Let's see if such a thing is possible. So for that, I am back in ToonBoom, so I'm on familiar ground, so it should be something that I can attempt to pull off without, well, rehearsing or editing or preparation, or we'll see. So forgive any weird moments, but what we're going to do is, this is just the thumbnail, it's very crudely drawn, but we're going to make gears sort of like this, and they're going to be able to spin, and it will cover quite a number of different techniques in the process. So, you know, this is definitely for those who are watching this video later. If it's one that, you know, is pretty intended to be able to follow along with, but you probably have to pause and rewind and, you know, complete all those steps, etc. So, I'm going to get rid of all this junk to start with. Hopefully the computer does not run too slowly today, but there's no guarantee of anything. Okay, the first thing I need to do is create the gear shapes themselves. Now, ToonBoom does not have great pivot snapping. I want this thing to be able to rotate right from its very center. If I draw a circle anywhere else on the stage, it's not going to be able to do this very well. Because a pivot is always, by default at least, set to the center of the stage, the center of the drawing space, right? So if I were to draw this thing here and select the rotation tool, it's going to rotate like that, which is no good. I need to be able to draw it from the very center of the stage in order for it to do that perfectly. So how do I do this? Bring these controls up here. Right click along the top of the camera and hit camera view. The top left one is a grid. Click that. There is no grid. Why is that? A grid will appear only if there is already a drawing of some kind there. So I'm going to press the first frame. You could just start drawing something, that would work, but we need to already have the grid before we start drawing. So activate the timeline view controls by right-clicking along the top of the timeline, turning on timeline view, and pressing the top left button on that panel as well. It's just this X thing here. Do that, it will create a blank drawing image like that. And now when we choose one of our drawing tools, whether it be the brush, the pencil, or the, you know, the drawing circular tool thing, there is our grid. Excellent. But things are still not going to snap to the center. For that, inside of tool properties, if that is not there, go to Windows, tool properties like that. And we want, which button do we want? It's one of these options. It's this one here, snap to grid. Click and turn that one on, like so. And now as we move around, you'll notice the cursor is snapping to different cross sections of that grid. The middle one is of course the one I want. Holding Shift and Option, it will expand out from the center, and you'll notice it will snap to both the horizontal lines and the vertical lines, which can be a little bit odd because they're not perfectly square, right? They are rectangular. Notice I'm snapping to the bottom, but it is halfway up the vertical one. Yes. So I'm going to put this one here just like that. Now, I need to make duplicates of this to have different rivets and different sizes and things inside this grid. Also, I want to make the outline black because it is gray right now from the thumbnail that I drew. Okay, so to overlap it and do it over the top, the obvious thing to do is to select it and press Command C and Command V, copy paste, right? So I'll do that, and it's going to pop it down like that, just to the bottom and to the left. It's not a complete paste in place, which is a shame. It will paste perfectly in place if I was doing it on a different layer. However, I want it to be on the same layer, but that's not happening. To fix it, hold Shift and press left and up, or simply press left or up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times. It might be 5 times depending on your viewing, like just how much you zoomed in or out. Can't remember. Anyway, hold Shift and Option once again, and I'm gonna shrink it down like this. I don't need snapping on anymore because we're just going to do it with our mind face. Wait, where's the snapping option gone? Oh, okay. Yeah, it's inside the black arrow tool. You notice that the grid snapping button is there as well. Also, I should point out there is a chat happening as well. So if you're here live, drop comments and things, and I'll respond to those every now and then. It will be a little bit more sporadic because this is, you know, I don't want to throw things off for those who are watching this later, but I'll definitely answer a whole bunch of questions at the end as well. But I may chime in if I see something interesting happening there. Okay, so I need a couple more of these rivety things. I'm gonna 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, I lost count. 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, there we go. That'll do. So that'll be another rivet which will have a bit of an inner embossing. But the most important one of all is the one that's going to have the the gear teeth on it. You know what I mean. So that needs to be quite a little bit larger, like this. Well, that's probably a little bit too large. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so now I need to make the teeth that sort of, the spokey bits. For that, the grid snapping needs to be back on again because all of these are going to be splaying out from the very center. Right? Okay, so here's the middle point once again. I'm just going to go, stop being gray, be black. Yeah, I'll save, why not? Okay, so they're going to come out from the middle. Like so, and they'll go out further than they need to. Up, down, left, right, and diagonally. Hold shift and it will go diagonally. There we go. Notice if it wasn't diagonally, it's going to try and go to this crosshair line, which is not diagonal. There we go. That's better. Okay, they're all even. Is it possible to get it perfectly in between that? Maybe if I aim for the 6, but it's still sort of... No, okay, that's enough, that's enough. Grid snapping back off again. Get the black arrow, and I'm going to select just around here in the middle, like that. This I do have to, unfortunately, do by eye. And for that, I'm going to hold shift, click it in the corner, and no, I'm not going to hold shift. I'm just going to rotate it a little bit like that. But I want to try and get it as perfectly in the middle as possible. But I've made a mistake because I need to copy and paste that again, don't I? So line that up as perfectly as I can. I'm going to pop this pivot point also in the middle like that, and rotate it around so it's about as dead even as I can get it. Around that. There we go. That seems about right. There we go. This will create the shape of our teeth after a whole lot of cutting. It doesn't look like much right now, but this is the most fun part. Apparently someone else is streaming at the same time and people are tossing up on who to watch. That will explain why the viewing figures are down today. Oh dear. But it's the most interesting one that I've done yet, so shame on everyone else. Anyway, so I'll go to the cutter tool right now. The cutter tool is underneath the black arrow. Yeah, select that. And all you have to do is swipe across like this. I'll sort of just trim the edges off. If it's not working for you, make sure that the mode is set to lasso here. But I also want to change this, the tip shape that it will be, from flat to round. That sort of just keeps everything in order. Otherwise, the places where things interconnect will tend to have strange gaps and look a bit odd. Yes. So I only need these interconnections to be on the outermost edge. So I'm just going to go through like that and sort of clean that up so it's all separated. And I can do all the ones in the very center in one hit with the black arrow. Just select everything and hit backspace. But I missed one. I missed one. There we go. Okay. Back on track. There we go. Alright, that's better. Now comes the real magical part, is the outer edge of every second one I'm going to slice away. Like this. Ah. Now it's suddenly starting to look like a gear, right? That's fun. And I'm going to do the inner edge of every other one again. So now we are left with the gear shape quite nicely. Before before we continue, I might just tidy up the size of that so it's a little bit nicer. Okay, so I'm going to get a light gray fill real quick and just sort of drop this in temporarily. But now comes to making it look three-dimensional, like we saw in the thumbnail. I'm going to make this thing rotate from that direction. However, there is more than one way to do it. The most obvious way would be to literally do it in three-dimensional space. So this is the perspective view, and I could get the rotate tool, and inside layer properties, I can switch it to be enable 3D, and then rotate it like this, and then I could duplicate that and push that a little bit to the left, like that, and that would work. But in order to start patching it together, I'm going to have to make squares and rotate them and place them in 3D space to fill up each individual gap like that. At that point, I'm just making actual polygons, one polygon at a time. I might as well just be making it in 3D by that point. So I think it would be a fun challenge to do it completely in 2D, completely flat and true. So there's going to be a number of fun techniques used in conjunction with each other in order to pull such a thing off. Okay, how am I going to do that? Hopefully I haven't bitten off more than I can chew. So the first thing is to make it do a perfect rotating loop flat, like this. I'm going to put it inside a peg, which is this button here, the orange one. There we go, it's inside of a peg. I'm going to make one keyframe on frame 1 and another keyframe on frame, say, 30. And with the rotate tool again, if you don't have those controls up, right click and go advanced animation. And I can just rotate it all the way around. And I could try and line it up by eye and get it perfect, but rather than doing that, I'm going to make it actually perfect by doing a parameter check. They're pretty good. This is how this works. There's a plus symbol here on the drawing layer. If I crack that open and I press this angled thing in the bottom left like that, rotation angle Z0. On this last keyframe, I'm going to punch in 360. So now it's going to be exactly where it was, but now all the way around. Yeah. Good morning. Well, I'm glad you could make the stream and not be an hour late today. Okay, so now it's perfectly all the way around. So if I was to copy and paste these keyframes like this, it's going to not rotate perfectly. And I'll show you why. It'll go all the way around, and then it will pause for one frame like that, which I don't want it to do. So the easy fix is to select this frame here, this secondary keyframe. No, sorry. Select the, I'll close this first. Select the keyframe before the complete rotation and add another keyframe in there. And that will pin where it is just before it. And then you delete the one after it by simply hitting decrease exposure. It probably is a key on your keyboard somewhere, or you could right click and go exposure, decrease exposure. You can see what the shortcut is for you there. And that will make the perfect loop. However, it looks like garbage on mine because it is rotating probably too fast. So I'm gonna try that one more time, but I think you get the idea. So I'll just do that real quick. Let's see who's hanging out in the chat. Not a whole lot of people today. That's a shame. I think this is pretty exciting. Are there other people streaming who are more interesting? That's probably what's going on. Because when I was just mucking around in TV Paint, we were averaging about double this. Thank you for your help you have and continue to give. You're very welcome. Let me know if there's more than I can do, or if there's any feedback on things that I'm screwing up on. You know. Okay, so this time I'm going to make it exactly 100. Let's see if that looks a little bit more smooth. I feel like it's rotating far too quickly at the moment. It's better, but it's still too jerky. Let's bring it all the way out to 200. Needs to be nice and obvious that this transition is taking place. 200. this bit planted on 100. Right there. Okay. Alright, it's going a bit slowly because of stream lag, but I'm pretty happy with that. Okay, so same technique as before. Keyframe in 1 frame before the complete loop, and then decrease the exposure of that. However, I probably did it one too many. No, that's fine. Okay, yeah, that will loop perfectly every time. Great. Alright, now comes the next part. Rather than it be a 100% 360 loop, we only need to do one portion. If I go forwards until this, you'll notice that, look at the top here. See, this line here is completely vertical. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 frames later, it is now completely vertical again. So I don't need to save everything. If I go 1 frame beforehand, this is actually our complete loop. So I can plant the keyframe here and delete the other 124 frames or so. And all I got to do now is copy and paste this little section. Doing that frame reminder, you know, all the way back at frame 100 or so was still important. That was, you know, make sure that everything will be smooth when we get to this step here. So now, it didn't work. Why is that? Oh, right. It should have been at frame 14. I'm stupid. I just went up until the next. I'll just point out what I did real quick. I only went up until the next vertical line, which was here. It should have been the next double vertical line, so it's actually, you know, there. I'm dense. Alright, there we go. Like that. Or rather, again, one before the vertical, which is there. These are the disadvantages to doing this live, because I can't edit out all of these errors. So I forgive you for sticking around, especially if you're watching this later and you have to just trudge through tons of nonsense. I promise there'll be plenty of techniques. Please stick around. Alright, pasting in a bunch of copies of that, and it should be a fairly seamless rotation. There we go. Lovely. Alright. I know ToonBoom has stroke editing tools and such, says Cyclops Kitten. Yes! Yes, it does. And that is on the agenda, to go into all the stroke editing tools. To give you a very brief look at that, because it's not entirely relevant right now, but I want to answer your question. If you press K on the keyboard, notice everything turns blue. And then you can get to all the stroke editing stuff very easily, like that. If this was a brush, for example, all the blue lines would be on the outer edge, but we're using pencil and line and circles and stuff like that, so it does appear in the middle. Okay, so that rotation's happening. Now I want the rotation to be happening on an angle. So for that I need to put it inside of another peg, which is, you know, just pressing that again, and you see the sort of hierarchy appears like that. Insert keyframe there. And I'm going to get to the scale tool. The scale tool this time, which is next to the rotation tool. The pivot point's still in the center, and all I got to do is squash it in like this, and it will still rotate around the original rotation, if that makes sense. So the order of the pegs is very important. If I was to reverse this order, put this one on, oh golly, I'm gonna have to do this via the node view because it will vanish. This is the node view, by the way. Welcome if you haven't seen it before. And welcome to all those who are just arriving now. Will the gears be in 3D? It'll be the illusion of 3D, yes. I demonstrated it in actual 3D a few minutes ago, which you may have missed. But also how it's not quite as practical. You'll be able to see seams. It'll just kind of, you know, the surfaces won't be rounded. It'll be a bit silly. Anyway, I'm going to rotate these pegs just so you can see what would happen there. So if the squashing happens in a different order to the rotation, that's the result. Very, very different. It's rotating the squashed version, and when it resets is bleedingly obvious. So I'll flip those back around, squashing, and then rotating the already squashed version. Does that make sense? Yeah. Alright. So now I want to copy this drawing, and inside you can do this by duplicating the drawing peg itself, and go duplicate selected layers, or you can do it inside the node view. I'll try and do it here inside the drawing sorry, inside the timeline view, so those using Essentials and Advanced can still follow along. I'm going to call this Gear Back. I was about to call it Gear 2, but it isn't actually second gear. This is just the extruded part, the thing that will be in back. This is going to have its own peg, like this. And this one I'm going to also select it, put a keyframe on the first frame, go back to the positional tool this time, and move it to the left. Or maybe I'll move it to the right, because then I don't need to change its layer ordering like that. So now when it rotates, you can see... that's not going to work. Oh boy, so many embarrassing errors when doing this live. Okay, so rather than taking a copy of just the peg on it, sorry, just the drawing layer on its own like that, I'm going to copy the entire structure. I'm going to take all three of these nodes and go to the top left panel here, go nodes, duplicate selected nodes. You should be able to do this via the timeline as well. Hook that up next to it, and on the topmost peg along with its squash rotation, making sure I'm on frame 1, move that to the left, and now that these two operate independently of one another but share the same movements, it will rotate like that. So you can see now all we should theoretically have to do is connect all of these panels together, and it will create a nice 3D effect. However, that won't work because this layer movement is happening to the physical layers itself. It isn't happening to the drawing. This is a downside of ToonBoom compared to Flash. If we were using Flash, we could do break apart and it would, you know, break down to just being raw vector art, and we could deal with it like that. We do not have that advantage here. These are still just flat drawings. At the end of the day, the drawings aren't doing anything. It is how it was before, just flat, perfectly circular thing. So how do I interact with this artwork directly so I can join all of these lines together and have it work? I'm going to attempt something which I didn't have the opportunity to rehearse to actually test if it would work or not. So it may break horribly. Just a heads up to kind of cover my face. But what I'm going to attempt to do is export it into a movie and then re-import it back in and vectorize it. That should work. First I'm going to bump up the thickness of the lines a bit, just to make them a little bit more obvious to the, you know, the vectorization process. I'll turn stroke mode off by hitting K again. Thank you for your comment, by the way. Okay, so let's give this a crack. I'm going to go File, Export, Movie. Wait a moment for that to appear. I can read a comment in the meantime. And it says, thanks for thinking of ToonBoom Essential users. Oh, of course, I must, because that's the difference of people who you know, can afford things and things that I'm not able to afford. You're doing crazy science now, boy. Damn right I am. Like the gears in The Great Mouse Detective. I don't know what that is. I'm sorry. I agree. I find ToonBoom very complex and hard to understand at times. Yes, it can be very difficult to understand, which is why I want to do more things like this, where we can walk through a bunch of techniques together. And if there's particular things that you find yourself struggling with, I would love to, you know, cover those points specifically. I've been using ToonBoom for so long now that it's sometimes difficult to remember where people would hit a stumbling block. Also consider people hit snags in different orders. There's some really bleedingly obvious things that I had no idea existed until years later. So, you know, there may be things like that for you as well, where you've been using it for a while and there may be some fairly novice stuff that you've just plumb missed. Happens to everybody. I've seen people that have been working with something for 10 years or more and didn't even know that you could, like, basically pretty much hit enter in order to play the film. Isn't that crazy? I don't know if I've literally seen that example, but yeah, close to it. Anyway, okay, Mauve. Which Mauve am I looking for? Spinning gear. It did go to the desktop, right? I'm gonna spend the rest of this thing just looking for the looking for the piece. Gear template. That's the one. I'm paying attention. It would be awesome to see you read between the frames on the fight scene from Great Mouse Detective. You know what? Maybe that's not a bad idea. I'm going to write it down in my list while I wait for this to import. Because I can't edit out the importing. Because it's a live tutorial. So apologies again to time-lapse viewers, who are probably going to have to look to skip ahead, or hopefully you can get a coffee and come back and all will be well. My doc isn't appearing, so I can't get to my list of things to research while on the train later. Alright. New comment. Alright, Mouse Detective. Read between the frames. Question mark, question mark. Is it like a film? If there's like a particular fight scene that I should be looking at? Because fight scenes are always good. Anyway, what file format I'm exporting as? Exporting as a MOV, animation codec. They're, you know, quite intense file size wise, but they are pretty good at preserving when bringing everything back in. Okay, so now let's see how this works. Convert to ToonBoom vector drawing. Grayscale, that's all I need. Great. Okay, fingers crossed. Anticipation, excitement, dread, all of these emotions. This is what you come to Onion Skin for. What a rush. Forget all the people that do adventure vlogging and all of that. Animation is where it's at. Oh boy. I'm running out of things to say. Oh, it's a Disney movie. Oh, okay. I thought it was like an anime because, you know, Metro Trainee talking about JoJo. I thought they were sort of like in the same genre. You know, something like, what's the other show that someone showed me recently? Mob Psycho 100? Is that what it's called? I haven't seen that either, but I saw one fight scene of it. I was like, oh boy. Yeah, that'll do. I'm on the edge of my seat with all the gears. Yes. It's exciting, right? Because it shouldn't be possible to animate something like this cleanly, because it looks three-dimensional. But it isn't. You're drawing it and connecting the pieces together. This is the high-octane stuff, this is. Okay, it looks like the import is done. I can stop wasting people's time. Let's see if this worked. Okay, this looks pretty much exactly the same as what there was before. But can I actually select pieces? Damn. I really thought that would work. It didn't work. Ah, man, I got so excited for a moment. Apologies, everyone. Because I have indeed wasted your time there. And I wish I could go back and edit things like this out. Because it's just created just some kind of horrible stencil made of little polygons. It hasn't vectorized it at all. I needed it to vectorize back into being strokes. But that's no good. That's no good at all. Okay, I'm gonna have to think of a solution on the fly. What am I going to do? There's a couple of ways that I could go about solving this. I could retrace everything, or I can just sort of pin together the particular parts in question and hope it works. I think I will use this as a stencil and retrace it. That should work and work fine. So we'll get into a little bit of compositing, and this really shouldn't take that long. I think it will be fine. But apologies for the little bit of a hiccup there. Done gears and their polygons, right? That was the whole problem with trying to do it in 3D as well, that you'd be making actual cutter stuff as well. Will the cutter tool be working on my gears? Yes, that's how I made this particular shape, and I'm going to do it to pin these things together as well. And I was hoping to cheat and save myself a little bit of time, but it looks like cheating has set me back just a little bit. So I'm going to put a transparency node in a combined thread here. I'll do a more detailed lesson on the composite another day, but now I can see very clearly everything that's going on here. I'm going to turn off the rear one for now, and on a new blank drawing layer, I'm going to make the same circle shapes, but now that everything's sort of rotated in a way that I want it to, rather than it being round and having to squash it and hoping that the rotation works, you know, I think it's still worth it for this reason. Is that, you know, it rotates like this, which is going to be almost impossible to guess if we started drawing it squashed at an angle like this, you know what I mean? So with everything lined up like this and just sort of tracing over it, it will work and line up. I've done this once before and I'm pretty sure this is the way I did it, but of course it's a little bit more time consuming than would be optimal, especially for a tutorial's sake. But that's okay. Hopefully you're having a good time and just have some biscuits. Maybe do some of your own drawing while you're waiting around. And if you're watching it later, maybe whenever it gets to these annoying moments, I could put in some timestamps that skip ahead to when things become a little bit relevant again. Or I suppose I could even unlist this video later and just edit out to the highlights, I guess. It's a possibility, but when it comes, like, one reason why I'm wanting to do it at this time, wanting to do it live, is because it's so difficult to find the time for proper tutorials these days that I just simply don't really get the time for it, like, at all. So it kind of feels like it's this or nothing a lot of the time, so I really wanted to give this a crack and have it work. And going back and sort of editing it out and getting it down to everything that is just completely raw and completely useful would take up so much time that I might as well just do a fully edited video. And they're still going to exist, don't get me wrong. I really want to have properly edited tutorials that are very condensed, they're very quick, you know, that only need to be anything between like 3 to 10 minutes long. Just raw information and absolutely everything you need to know with zero wasted energy, wasted time. Like, every second that you spend watching it is going to be of use. That's the goal, at least. Pretty much every second of use. Whereas a lesson like this is a bit more long-winded. There's quite a number of steps to it. There's quite a few things to follow along with. It's like a miniature project, you know? So hopefully it's okay that it is, you know, a bit more long-winded and that it is a bit more free-form, a bit more casual, that there are mistakes and conversation happening throughout. But of course, feedback is the most crucial part of that. Tell me what you think. If it's a format that you're okay with, if you think it can be improved on, if there's anything that you dislike or disagree with. Personally, I do very much enjoy the live aspect, because in moments like this where there is a bit of downtime and I'm sort of just chipping away at it, I can turn my attention to this chat just here and see what's going on. So I made my first animation in ToonBoom after binge watching your videos. Managed to make a puppet. So thanks, dude. Oh, my brother did think I was super cool yesterday. Ah, yes, I remember talking to you about that. I'm glad he thought you were super cool. But even more so, I'm very interested to see how your puppet animation turned out, because it's a topic that I feel I've only gone into fairly lightly. Only done fairly simple... Oh, sorry. Only talked about very simple puppet stuff. So whatever you are capable of making with that, I think is very exciting and would love to see more. Alright, so what I'm doing now is, you could probably tell, is I went through and copy and pasted the circular portions of the gear onto every frame, and because it was onto blank drawings, it did paste perfectly into place, and I didn't need to do the shifting to the left and to the right. So that's very handy. And now I need to go through and draw the individual spokes in. So having the template is very helpful, because I know exactly where all these lines need to go. And rather than going through and focusing on an entire frame, you may notice right now that I'm going through and cycling through the animation, focusing on a particular stroke one individual line at a time and going through its movement. This is useful for a couple of reasons. One, it means I'm not going to miss anything. And second, I can keep a closer eye on its degree of movement. This is a fairly even thing. It's all straight lines. There's no easing involved. So it doesn't matter so much for this particular piece. But when you're doing character animation and you're going through and doing cleanup, I have noticed this to be quite a useful technique indeed, because it's just kind of reliable rather than doing cleanup on entire characters for an entire frame. When you move on to the next frame, do that entire frame, move on to the next frame, that next frame. You know what I mean? Like, it starts to fall off model very easily because you have no point of reference for your movement. So if I was doing something a little bit more complicated and I sort of needed to, I can quickly cycle back and forth and just go like this. Oh, okay, yeah, is this movement even? Like, is that wobbling at all? Is everything sort of in check? You know, actually, that's a good one. That's a good idea. Back to my list, so I can do a full thing on that one day. What's that? There we go. Okay. Zutra followed up after talking about his puppet, saying, "No, it's just a very short dance of a character that's supposed to look like a cartoon version of my brother for a joke. So I'm new to animation and not even sure how I'd upload it. If you can figure out a way to upload it, I'd love to see it. Send it to me on Twitter or link it in one of these streams one day. I'd love to show it off for everyone to see." Cyclops Kitten has replied saying, "I'm sure it's amazing. Good for you starting. I find the hardest part of art and animation just sitting down and starting." Yes, I agree with that fully. I think many people would. Simply finding even though it's something that you enjoy doing. Oh, geez, I'm falling off the habit that I just taught, didn't I? I started going through and doing different strokes of the same gear, and that means I missed one, which completely botches my theory of it stops you from missing things. Golly. Okay, back on track. What were we saying? Oh yes, the hardest part is just starting. Absolutely. I mean, I've been doing these sorts of videos for a few years now, and the hardest part is still just sitting down and starting. The idea of getting in front of a microphone and doing a recording is still very, like, you get that rush of anxiety. Like, it's a real thing, and it just does not go away. And the only thing that stops it is just saying, "Oh, screw it," and just sitting down and just starting and trying not to really think about it and just hoping for the best. So live streams is great for that because it has to be off the cuff and you sort of just have to roll with the punches. Like, anything that happens, just too bad. Just deal with it. It exists. People saw it. Too bad. And I guess that's okay. But as far as sitting down and actually doing it, like, I've been wanting to stream regularly for a long time. And if you're a long-time subscriber, you may have noticed that it doesn't happen very often. I probably only streamed like a small handful of times all last year. Like, this is my third morning in a row doing this. And I've probably already streamed more than I did in the last 6 months. But, like, that's nuts, isn't it? How did that happen? And it is just sort of sitting down and doing it. I have a bit of a new morning routine, shall we say, and that's why in a few of these morning sessions I've been saying to people, sort of keep me accountable. I want to do this every day, but when I first wake up, I certainly don't want to, and it takes a lot of energy to do so. And the main thing that is getting me to do it is the expectation. Like, if this is a routine and people are expecting me to be here and to do it, then I don't want to let them down. And, that is true to an extent. I've seen the same people coming back each time. So I guess there is, maybe even just 1 or 2 people that are actually waiting and expecting for it to start. But that's enough. That counts. That will get me up and get me doing it, which is pretty cool. Yeah, I'm more comfortable with just drawing the frames. As in drawing an entire frame rather than this frame by frame method. I'd encourage you to at least attempt the other version. Will you be doing a tutorial shading frame by frame on ToonBoom? Yes, so that's pretty much what I was talking about before, and similar to what I'm doing here, we're focusing on individual strokes at a time rather than entire frames. That's very useful for doing cleanup and multi-tone shading. When it comes to multi-tone shading, there are several different ways to go about it, and I'm really looking forward to covering that as well. I haven't decided yet if I'm going to do that as an edited or a live tutorial. A lot of it will kind of come down to how this one goes. I feel like it's going okay. Things are a bit time consuming right now because it is just, hey, I need to go through every frame of every tooth wheel and just put a line in. So if you are here just for the lesson, then you know, it's a little bit dull right now, you know, but hopefully. So what was I saying? Oh yes, because shading is a fairly long-winded process like that. You know, I kind of show an example of doing this, but then sitting through the entire thing would be a bit of a drag. So I guess thinking about it, it would need to be an edited one. But maybe the process of actually painting it, actually doing it might as well just be a stream anyway, I suppose. I like what I'm doing right now, just sort of drawing and having a conversation with you lot. And then a full edited version with moots and branding and music and all that sort of fun stuff can be a much more condensed 10-minute for those who are here for specifically that. I animate by painting the frames onto separate buildings, then riding down the road on a motorcycle to view the animation. I would like evidence of this. I'm finding I'm getting a lot better at jumping into projects. I think school helped with that. It is good for that. I think a lot of people would agree with you there. Because animation isn't necessarily something you need to go to school for. Like, you know, you're not trying to be a doctor. Having the piece of paper doesn't necessarily prove yourself as much as having like a decent reel or whatever does. But many will contest that it is great simply for discipline. It just gets you doing it. Golly, I really hope I'll have time to finish this. The stream's already been going for 40 minutes, so I'm going to start running overtime soon. But I really, really, really want to do all of this in one hit. Because it's Friday now, and if I don't get to finish it until Monday, then those who are just here for the tutorial are having it broken across 2-hour-long streams, which is a bit of a pain. And I don't want to do that. But I do have to leave at a particular time today. Anyway, I just uploaded a video of my laptop screen taken from my phone if you want to see it. And yeah, I find it really tricky using the pad tablet, not looking where I'm drawing. You'll get used to that. And as far as watching it, I'd definitely love to, but I will save it for another day because it's a little bit off topic and I'm doing a fairly specific task today. But the more casual streams where I'm just sort of practicing and doing my own thing, like I love seeing you know, the stuff other people are working on, and then, you know, we can all see it and critique it together if that's what you're after. So tweet it at me if you like, and then it will sort of just be there, and you know, we can go back and look at it another day. But for now, I need to finish all these gears. Look at all these gears. Look how long this is taking. This is nuts, isn't it? Wouldn't it have been nice if there's a break apart option, and then I wouldn't have to use it as a stencil and trace over the entire thing frame by frame? Maybe that feature exists. If that is a thing, that would blow my freaking mind. But again, another reason why I really like doing these types of videos, because that has happened before where I've gone about the slow way of doing something, turned it into a video, and someone in the comments section has said, hey, you know, you can just do it like that. I'm like, excuse me, what? And it just completely changes everything, which is awesome. And, you know, like if I didn't know about it, then I'm sure there's other people that didn't know about it either. So everybody wins. But come to think of it, it looks like there is a couple of benefits to doing the stencil version here, because when you squash and stretch things via a peg and do it via the layer, it squashes and stretches everything evenly, despite everything being a stroke here, which, you know, one of its benefits is that it doesn't contort and warp when you free transform it. That doesn't really apply when it's inside of a peg layer. You may notice these flat edges here. I mean, look how thick they are compared to these strokes. Like, that's because it's been stretched to be that way. Isn't that nuts? So at least now it's going to be even again. It may be a tiny bit jittery because, you know, the actual overlap is, you know, my tracing isn't 100% perfect, but I think it's moving enough to not really be a problem. And even then, I'm undoing a fair bit just to get it right. Golly. Okay, I go to school for animation, so I have better equipment there, and so I have time to actually make things I want to make. It gives me the time to experiment instead of having to try animation side by something else or a different study. That's good that you do get time to you know, like work on your own thing. Is that true? I mean, I would have thought you'd have assignments and homework, assessments and things. I guess you still get to make what you want to, regarded that it involves a particular theme or technique or something like that. I'm not sure. What else we got? I like school because it's teaching me new techniques and stuff I wouldn't find out on my own. Okay, sorry, I thought that followed up, but that was it. Cool. Okay, have you made an animated music video or animated meme? I've not done a full music video before, although I would probably like to one day, because I think animating to music is a lot of fun. And making things happen sort of in time with it and in events is very satisfying. And like I do it more with editing a lot. Like, I'll often edit to music, like not make a full music video, but it just sort of fills out the timing of stuff, particularly when it comes to like editing trailers or like demo reels and things like that. That's great fun to do, and it sort of becomes the entire backbone of the entire project. So animating a music video would just be awesome like that. As far as like memes are concerned, like meme culture and like just contributing to internet jokes and stuff, nah, I don't really involve myself with that really. Like I'll consume them like anybody else, but as far as making others, the closest I have to that, you could say, is what I like to call animating moots. So moots I like to call just little personal projects that take no more than an hour or so to make. So this gear, for example, I'd qualify as a moot because it's a little mini project. And I use moots for a few different reasons, and there's a reason why I like to call them that, because it distinguishes them from full-on animations. Like if I'm spending a year on a big project, it's very exhausting and very draining and very all-encompassing. So having moots on the side is like, oh, I made this entire thing in an hour. Great, that's go me. You know, I'll get back to that topic in a moment, but because I finished doing this, this tracing is done. Wonderful. So now I'm going to go through and trim off all the edges with the cutter tool on all of them again. So this might take a few more minutes, but that's okay because I can talk about moots. What are the other things I use moots for? Okay, so they're good to sort of just relax and unwind because they're small projects with minimal consequence. I like them for quick bursts of inspiration, if that makes sense. So one of my favorite things to do is like just on Messenger or, you know, talking with a friend or whatever. If there isn't an appropriate like emoji or GIF or something to express something, I just think, well, what if I just animated it? So I will, and just make a very short, stupid animation. But the thing is, it has to be made from start to finish very, very quickly, like within 5 to 10 minutes, because you're having an active conversation, and if the topic moves on, then it's too late and it's irrelevant. So no one's going to care anymore. So they're great for keeping motivated like that and sort of reminding you that, hey, every project doesn't have to be a huge investment of your life and take all-nighters and destroy you. It is possible to just, you know, doodle, just have a little scribble of an animation, and that's fine. You don't need to be one-upping yourself every single time. Yeah. This one's probably getting a little bit above moot territory, actually. There's a lot of prep going on because it's very clean. Moots are a lot more just thrown together. It doesn't matter how awful they are, but, you know, I want to show how to get something that is fairly clean and accurate looking. But unfortunately, there is this time-consuming hacking, slashing of shapes. But it's getting there. Okay, I only made one so far, but a lot of people don't know that. Okay. Why is 2D animation really beat down in school? Not everyone wants to work for Pixar. I have no idea. It's probably the school you're going to, or it may be the country that you're in, because I know where I'm from, 2D isn't downplayed at all. Like, it still seems to have a lot of respect. So, yeah, I guess I can't really relate to that, unfortunately. Like, I'm sorry that you're having to go through that and sort of like fight against the man of people saying that there isn't really an industry for 2D, because that's absurd. You know, most TV shows are 2D. There's always going to be commercial work. Everything has 2D animation involved to some degree, pretty much. I mean, even like the lower third titles on the news and sports and things, that's 2D animation, isn't it? Surely that counts. May not necessarily be in ToonBoom or Flash or whatever, but like After Effects, it's similar mindset involved, and it's probably a software that you're gonna figure out at some point anyway. Dang. I have no clue. Some of us who actually want to do 2D are looked down upon because it's not common. What do you mean looked down upon? Like, by whom? By teachers? By 3D students? I mean, come on, like, even if you worked for Pixar or Disney or whatever, their entire movies are still pretty much animated in 2D first. Like, they're all roughed out. 3D is just a more complex form of modern cleanup art. Like, you can find rough animation for Moana, and it's in 2D. Seriously, if you want to make crappy 3D, then yeah, it's quick and easier. But if you want to make good 3D, it is more time consuming, more expensive, and more difficult to do than 2D. When it comes down to anything, it's pretty much always going to be quicker and more efficient to just draw it. Why? Like, consider how many steps are involved in 3D. You got to design it, which is done in 2D, but then you got to model it, rig it, do all of the restrictions, texturing, UV unwrapping. The animation process is like completely different. Like, each one of those things is a different department. Like, if you end up working in the field, it's more than likely you'll only be doing one of those things. In school, you pretty much have to learn all of them, I think. Maybe that's changed now, I don't know. But, you know, say that you get really into doing textures. Like, you don't have to be an animator to do that. Like, that's a different set of interests. That's a different skill set. Still working in animation, but you're a texture guy. And you probably could have an entire career just being a texture guy. I don't know. Anyway. Teachers and students look down on us because they feel like 2D is dead and it's not big in the industry. Well, I'll say firsthand that they're wrong. Unless they're teachers that are working in the industry. Like droughts happen. Like, there'll be times where you're probably not working, and as long as you're smart and work around that, then you'll be fine. Like, just keep some savings, keep yourself open to freelance. I'd say the important thing with anything like that is that just learning how to animate isn't really enough. Like, you got to learn a little bit about the business side of things. Like, if you can take care of yourself financially, and you can learn how to negotiate and make contacts, and go out and network. Like, communication is an important skill, and it is something that needs to be acquired and learnt, because that doesn't come naturally. A lot of animators can be fairly quiet or introverted, which is fair, because maybe that's one reason why you turned to drawing and art in the first place, is maybe you had a hard time socializing and fitting in. So turning to art was a great outlet for that. So it may be anxious to do and to sort of get out there and take those risks, but it is important to succeed as well. But like everything else, like with animation and art, social skills and business skills can be practiced like anything else. And like, you experiment, make mistakes, like go into it being like, okay, I'll probably screw this up, but I'll learn something from it, and eventually you get there. Like I was terrible at it. Like, communicating and hanging out with people was pretty tricky, but now it's one of my favorite parts of this job, is meeting new people, because it's a wonderfully integrated community. A lot of people all know each other, and it's great when you stumble across people in the field like that you've heard of. It's like, oh man, like I'm a huge fan of your work, and now we're working together. This is so crazy. Like, that kind of thing happens quite regularly. So yeah, it's worth pushing through. Anyway, just refresh the page and say, okay, yeah, we only have 2D courses, and the rest are either pre-production for 3D courses. We have 4 courses on 3D alone. Wow, yeah, that's a real shame. My short film production teacher partially graded us on our collaboration and communication skills. There you go. So that's good. I'm glad they did that. And I know group assignments have a reputation in school for being not great, but I guess they are there for a reason. Like, if you're the one person who's working and everyone else isn't pulling their weight, hey, cool, now you get to flex your sort of leadership skills. How do you go about getting other people motivated and working together in a team and having a similar vision to work towards the same goal? Like, that's pretty hard as well, and that's also a different skill. But it teaches ambition and sort of, going above board and, going the extra mile sort of thing. So when it comes to showing off to employers and stuff like that, like, that's good. It's like, what's a good example? Oh, okay, so like, just like a couple of days ago, one of my colleagues, who's probably watching this actually, because he's been coming up to me and talking about these streams the last few days, just tried rigging. Like he's hired as an animator, but it's just like, I want to give rigging a crack. So he just rigged his own character in his own time, and then showed it to the animation director and the lead rigger, just to be like, hey, what do you think of this thing? And they were like, hey, this is pretty good. Like, there's something with this. Like, do you want to do rigging? He's like, okay. So now he's getting trained as a rigger. Like, that can happen. So that's pretty cool. Maybe I'm just lucky to work in a really nice place where people are willing to show that willing. What's the word I'm looking for? Sorry, it's so early. To train people up and invest in their interests and all that kind of thing, rather than it just being the cold machine of, this is your job, you will do this for the next 2 years. Like, I know that does happen in places as well, and it can be a bit soul crushing. It depends on the project, it depends on the people, and there's so many factors. And I've certainly been in those environments as well. So I feel like I'm rambling. There's lots to explore and do and meet, is what I'm saying. Anyway, what hurts a lot in those in 3D courses is we don't get any freedom to do what we do. Everything so far has to have photorealistic humans. Really? No fantasy, no animals, none of the more original stuff. Wow. And there's no collaboration. That's nuts. I'm pretty speechless to that, actually. Like, what does that mean? Does that mean they expect you to only go work for, like, EA and do like, photoreal games and stuff? Like, I suppose it exists a lot in, like, some commercial stuff as well. Like, you know, like car ads, for example. Car ads are a good one, because in majority of those, there is no car. It's just a photorealistic CG thing. Like, that's way cheaper than just apparently shooting it. I don't know. So I think there's just like a black silhouette mannequin of a person sitting in the driver's seat in a lot of those. Uh-oh. I should probably save, eh? If you're unhappy with the program, can you not switch? You paid to be taught. You deserve to learn what you want. I don't know if it's that simple. At least you have Onion on the internet to teach you. Yeah! Damn right! To be fair, like, I know you're saying your channel's a mess, but I feel like my channel's quite a mess too. Like, it's not really any order to it. There's no structure. Its upload schedule is completely sporadic. I kind of just do what I feel like at the time. Like, I have a long way to go in regards to making this a reliable resource that you could actually learn a program from start to finish and then go up to an employer and say, like, hey, I know what I'm doing. Like, I don't know if that's a good idea yet to be able to say, oh, Onion Skin taught me. Although I have seen that happen. Anyway. What was I saying? Yeah, hopefully there's ways to give feedback, but unfortunately education curriculums are ridiculously rigid. And I think a lot of places would just say, be grateful that this course exists at all, because it's something that has probably only existed within the last 10 years or so. Because if you consider a lot of the more traditional college courses, they've been around for like 100 years and like never changed. The world is completely different now to how it was like before the smartphone era, if you consider. Like people are, like children are growing up now unknowing that there was a world before you could swipe a screen. Like, that's pretty crazy. But the entire education system is built from before, like, the screen. Textbooks are still books on the most part. That's pretty weird. Anyway. Have I worked for any big famous animation studios? Nothing that you probably would have heard of. I've worked on projects that you might have heard of. But no, Australian studios are fairly small and unknown, but you know, I quite like that. There's a lot, like the industry is definitely growing here at the moment, which is quite exciting. So I'm really enjoying being a part of it. Anyway, hey, I finally finished all that cleanup, so we can get back to the actual tutorial itself. Sweet. And then I'll go back to more trimming and cleanup stuff. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is turn off the template. Oops. I need the node network. There it is. Ah, golly. Show yourself. So buggy and slow. This computer's driving me mad. Alright, so the template is turned off and I'm left with the original stencil. And I'm going to collapse now. I don't want you anymore. Damn, I'm probably streaming for too long and the computer is not liking being online for this long. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is quickly fill in each of these frames like so. So this will give a like a fill gap, because I'm going to be putting things in behind of other things, right? And if it were hollow, then the things behind things are going to show up, and then that just leaves me a buttload more trimming that I really cannot be bothered to do right now. So this saves that little bit of time there. Wonderful. Okay, so this time, rather than it being on different layers and in pegs and things like that, I'm going to do it via the drawing layers and not on a peg. Okay, so that's quite important so that we can actually interact with these directly. So I'm going to select everything, copy and paste everything, shift. Hang on. No, I want the stencils back on now. Sorry, I do apologize. I'm having to make things up. I think this experiment of doing entire tutorials live is a little bit shaky, and it probably would be a good idea to go back and edit it. Okay, I'm going to align each of these backing frames like this. Sorry, I need to stick on this layer. Copy and paste that. Paste it back here. Place it like that, and hopefully command down. There we go, that puts it in the background. Lovely. Alright, so now I just got to do that on every frame. Shouldn't take too long, I suppose. That's right, I can read more stuff. I don't get why you redrew the gears and didn't just copy paste them. Why did you trace all of that, by the way? I'm a little lost on that bit. Because they're rotating. They're rotating in such a way that it wouldn't have been possible to copy and paste them. I did copy and paste the parts that were plausible, so the perfectly round parts. But as far as the teeth are concerned, which rotate like this, I can't copy and paste that across every single frame. Like, that had to be sort of done manually. You know what I mean? Like, if I could copy and paste if I could break apart the peg movement from the stencil and just turn that into raw artwork and flatten it and work with it, great. That'll be awesome. Maybe it's possible and I'm being completely oblivious and someone will point it out and that will just make my week. But as far as I know, that's not possible in ToonBoom. This probably would have been faster to do if I made it in Flash, and maybe I will just recreate this in Flash one day and do it in like 2 seconds. But I think it's been fine. It's been good to sort of just hang out and, have a conversation during the slower parts. Also, just personally speaking, it's been really good practice for talking and drawing at the same time. Because if you're floating around the last couple of days that I've been doing these, it's a little janky, isn't it? The curvature isn't perfect. Screw it. I'm running out of time. I don't have time to be perfect anymore. Yeah, if you're hanging around the last couple of days where I was sort of just experimenting and doing fairly loose drawing, I really tend to struggle with talking and working at the same time. But today, it's been somewhat successful. So that's nice. So, personally speaking, I've enjoyed how things have gone just for that reason alone. If it's been a little bit frustrating for the viewer, I definitely understand why. Like if I was a viewer watching this, I'd be thinking, golly, get on with it. I just want to learn how to make a gear. I'm not here to hang out. What are you doing? So for that sake, I would like there to be an edited one, but I unfortunately cannot promise it. There just isn't the time for that sort of thing. I already sort of have a schedule of what the edited tutorials are going to be, but considering that all of this footage exists, I don't know, it might be possible. As long as I'm not going through, like when I do the edited ones, like it's full on just how heavily they are edited, because individual sentences like ums and ahs, there's retakes of a lot of stuff. Like it takes a while to do like a 10-minute recording. But one like this, I guess I can keep in a bit more of the off-the-cuff stuff, and rather just remove the larger sections where it's fairly repetitive, like the copying and pasting there, the trimming, things like that. Okay, so that general copy pasting is done. What I'm going to do now is... Sorry. I definitely want to remove that. Excuse me. Remove the stencil shape from this one. Actually, I want to remove that too, the inner lines, because they're only viewable from one angle. I don't need the stencil anymore. Turn those off. There we go. And it's probably starting to make sense what I'm going to do here. By connecting all of these lines together. It will be fairly quick to do when it actually works. Yeah, I just need to get rid of the color. Okay. Okay, if you had a dark YouTuber version of yourself, what would it be? This is for anyone in general. Have you seen my April Fool's video from last year? That would be my dark YouTuber self. Because that was... I guess now that you mention it, pretty much exactly that. where I went and deliberately did every stereotypical YouTuber cliche I could think of. That just makes my skin crawl. But it was a lot of fun and weirdly addictive. So am I doing it in 3D? No, this is a 2D thing that is made to look 3D. I'm gonna have to dig up my Twitter account to see more from the community. Yeah, I guess so. Like, do you mean the animation community or like my personal one? Because I'll tell you, there isn't really much of one. I've got a very humble audience. But it's good. I like it that way because we're all just sort of on a even playing field. You know, I don't feel like it's, you know, content creator and their fan base. I just feel like we're just all animators hanging out, which is good. Okay, so now it comes to connecting all of the pieces together. So for this, I got the line tool back. I'm going to be holding shift and it just goes straight lines like that. I'm going to turn stroke mode on at this time by pressing K. And that's important for a couple of reasons, because if I do a stroke across like this, you'll see little blue boxes where the lines intersect. So as this is moved down, when it touches, you'll notice the blue boxes appear. So now I know it is intersecting and the cutter tool will work. If I go too high above, it'll disappear. If I go too far down, you'll notice it separates into two boxes and it sort of means I've gone too far. Yeah. That water sound heart. Oh, I'm sorry that was audible. That was me drinking. I would have thought that would sound disgusting. And would be very embarrassed if that turned up in it. Like if I go back and edit it, that would be something that would be fairly embarrassed would appear. Alright, so now I'm going to copy and paste and go through and just place this line through. Oh, I probably don't need to copy and paste today. I should probably just go through and... So here's a good example. So see where this one lines up, it's not connected there, so I need to go down so that connects like that. So I guess I'll just go... place the lines in as closely as I can manage it, and then maybe I'll go backwards through each one and just line it up a little bit nicer. That'll work. I think that'll work. I've really got to go soon. I'm so close. I really don't want this to bleed over into another stream, but I don't think I'm like, you can see what I'm doing. Like, this is like the final step. Come on. I gotta go in 10 minutes ago. Like, I absolutely have to like leave the house at 7:30 pretty much. But I need to get ready and like have a shower and breakfast and all that kind of boring morning routine stuff. I think I might have to admit defeat and call it. I'll finish lining up this stroke. Oh, this sucks because it won't be until Monday that I get to come back to it, which is a real shame because I don't have my schedule on me, but I did write a bit of one yesterday of just the things that I want to stream coming up, just to kind of help keep things fresh and exciting. Because after 2 days of... Actually, no, I guess I did 2 different things yesterday, didn't the last 2 days, didn't I? They were different enough. But just to make sure that things don't get too repetitive, there's plenty to talk about, and I'm quite excited of just having the avenue of doing something nearly every day, because there's so many videos over the years that I've just never really had a chance to make because everything would take like half a month or more. So things would fall by the wayside, but now I can finally get to those things, which is very exciting. Okay, look, you can see what I'm getting at, right? Once it's all done, but we'll pick this back up on Monday morning my time, and we'll easily finish it off by then. And we'll probably have a bit more time for conversation as well, and maybe I will just sort of edit it together into a more condensed thing as well. I've said it so many times in this stream that if I don't do it, it's probably going to annoy people. So I'll reply to a couple more comments just real quick before heading off. Turn on snapping. I don't think that would work in this regard. Or maybe it would. Hang on. What kind of snapping though? I guess this one? Maybe that does work. I'm a bit cautious of it because of that the gears aren't perfectly aligned left to right. But that does seem to... Yeah, he might have just done it. That's... Oh man, that's so obvious. That looks fine. That does look fine. It's starting to come together now. And like everything's lined up, I think you've solved my problem. But I am still out of time. So tune in Monday for the exciting conclusion of this garbage. I got an email. Where I'll kind of shade it, and you know what? I'll do some compositing as well. I'll make it shine and do some neat effects and stuff like that. So that'll make it fill up the second stream. It'll be like a good part 2. It'll be worth. Trust me. Don't trust me, but I think it'll be worth. Anyway, onion skin, go to work, you butt. Let the stream bleed. More fun tomorrow. No, it won't be tomorrow. It'll be Monday. It's Friday right now for me, my time, and I've got like a crazy deadline, so I'm going to be working all weekend. No time for onion skin this weekend, which is a shame. Don't forget to check your Twitter. No, I won't. I'll do it on the train. I need to leave 3 minutes ago. Onion skin 2018. Yep. It's amazing how one line really brings out the 3D effect. I know, right? Isn't it awesome? Anyway, next time on Dragon Ball Z, I really want to do a... Actually, it's funny you mentioned that, Winry, because I'll mention this real quickly now. Like with doing a live tutorial session, I'm heavily considering experimenting doing a live read between the frames because I am bummed out that it basically has to go on the shelf in order to focus on this stuff. But I get really excited doing frame analysis just like with friends and stuff, so maybe it would work. It'll just have to be fairly focused, because otherwise it's like, hey, let's sit down and watch a show live, because that's not breaking copyright. So, as long as I'm still within fair use bounds, I think we should be fine. All right. Thanks, everyone. It's been a good stream. Great hanging out with you all. I'll see you Monday.